Okay, we are live. Hello, everybody. It's Sébastien from ENZYME at Work. We have another podcast this week with another great guest, Ismahan, that will introduce herself. So, as a recap of what we do at ENZYME at Work is all about trying to talk about collaboration, science, accelerating innovation, circular economy, sustainability, health, global south. So really to try to see how can we somehow make a world a better place, if I may say, through collaboration and innovation. And today we are going to talk about collaboration and innovation in the global south with Ismahan, that is now based in Somalia. And without further notice, I thank you for the people that are going to listen to this podcast. And without further notice, Ismahan, can you introduce yourself?
Thank you very much, Sebastian, for this invitation. I was looking forward to participating in this marvelous exchange of ideas. My name is Ismahan Adawe. I am from Somalia and I'm based here. I run a company called Akidas that does pharmaceuticals. My training academically is pharmacy. I trained as a pharmacist in the UK and I worked there for 7 years. And then back in 2014, I have returned back home, Somalia, and I started working not in the pharmaceutical industry, but I started a short period of consulting for the government, working with the Somali government that was at the time forming from decades of civil war. And then afterwards, I joined the World Bank, in which then I worked on various developmental projects. And then back after COVID, I have decided to go back to what I trained in initially and set up a company called Akidas, like I said earlier, that mainly imports pharmaceutical drugs and medical equipment from all over the world, especially Turkey and Europe, in particular the UK.
All right. Thank you very much, Ismahan. So, with let's say with your experience, we can already see you have been working with a lot of different cultures, a lot of different countries, in a lot of different contexts, business, government, no government. So, I'm quite happy to have this discussion with you. So, reminding of collaboration, innovation in the global south with a focus on Somalia. So, how do you see the linkage between collaboration, innovation? How can we maybe accelerate? Back to your business, can we accelerate bringing innovation to the global south and maybe in Somalia? What do you think about this topic? Generally speaking,
I think this initiative it has wide impact. I believe it plays a role in part of the developing aspect of countries such as Somalia that are emerging from prolonged conflict. And also, in terms of scientific innovation, have missed many years of investment in the sector. And with such partnerships, it plays an important role whereby academic institutions, universities, R&D departments can use current advances and current innovations that exist in which they have missed because of the war and take advantage of the innovations that are now available and leapfrog. Somalia has actually in a way been quite lucky. It has had a huge diaspora because of the war, understandably, and with that, a lot of people came back with a great educational background. Some of them with investment, and you get. At the moment, currently, we have a very strong internet system that works. We have a very low-cost telecom that is owned by individuals from the country, from Somalia, and also banking sector that helps business owners now to get financing. For the first time, we're able to have a swift things that we take. Things that are easy in Europe or in the developed world, such as like Swift code, we're now able to have that. So obviously, it's it's one step forward towards getting investors worldwide to look into Somalia. But coming back to the scientific aspect, I think there is room for collaboration. There is room to form a peer-to-peer mentorship or peer to academic membership, company to company membership, and also potentially business enterprise partnerships and investments that can lead to a very much yieldful progress, and also it it allows an environment for learning. I mean, a country like Somalia, it's open for everything. I mean, every aspect that you touch, there is something that needs to be done. Like for example, I mean, if I give you one example, it's the environmental aspect. Now, I mean, the country does not have a strong government institutions that can work on the impact of the negative aspect with regards to climate change. So if a company that is operational in Europe or elsewhere that works well in climate mitigation, Somalia could be a country for it to come and invest. Another aspect, another area or another industry that is ripe for investment is renewable energy. The country has sun, I mean, I will say 300 days of the year. You know, so if somebody wanted to do renewable energy, solar energy, it is the country to come in and invest. However, I understand. I mean, when you hear Somalia, I mean, you hear negative media outreach, which I think also has a lot of truth to it. I mean, we do have sadly a terrorist operational group called Al Shabaab. We have, in the past, we've had pirates, and we also had a very long civil war. So that scares potential investors. But if you look beyond that and you follow the context, then you will also find that there is a great opportunity for investment and collaboration going forward as the country also tries to develop itself and pacify all the danger elements that keeps investors away. The government is working very hard to secure most of the country. There is, like I said earlier on, a financial system that is beginning to become much more transparent and trustworthy. So therefore, it's not a bad idea to come and have a look and potentially look into investing and working in Somalia.
Thank you very much for this very detailed view on the political, economical situation over there. What I also, I don't know if you saw it, but in Kenya right now, there's this big project that has been, I think, financed 1 or 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, about CO2. To have this big part of the land that could be used as a CO2 credit. I think there's a lot of things moving in Africa about, because this huge potential, 300 days of sun. There's a lot of things to be done. I mean, in Somalia, you also have the seaside, which has a lot of potential on the seaside as well.
Yeah.
So, can we dig a little bit into the scientific academic situation in Somalia? Can you maybe give us a bit more specific picture of how many universities, roughly speaking, do we have? What are some kind of key areas you are focusing on, or some key areas you need support? Any kind of innovation you hear that are needing some kind of external, let's say, partnership? Anything on the academic side / scientific side you have heard about that is worth putting forward for us to know, or even for eventually some potential partners to reach out to you?
Sure. So the universities, most of them are, apart from one or two, most of them are privately owned.
Mm,
And with that, I mean, anything that is private sector led, it's always open to partnerships and innovation. And one of the reasons that most of these universities are owned privately is because, in the absence of functioning government institution or educational department, because of the war the country had, and effectively the collapse of the government, uh, privately run academic institutions filled that gap. And also with that too, they also stuck to uh, offering scientific subjects that are the traditional, such as, life sciences, biology, physics, and chemistry. Not so much in terms of masters or after that, like in PhD. Most of the Somali bachelor graduates tend to then go to other countries to seek further education. That may be going to change soon. I think there are some universities offering masters, but that is more mostly in the art sector, like in education, political science, etc., but not in life sciences. And therefore, there is a huge gap, which I think with the right collaboration, then I feel it's a sector that is ripe for development. Most of the universities don't have a strong laboratory system. Like I said, it's what I will call above basic level of educational infrastructure. Um, but most of the lab systems does not, I mean, what they currently have is not conducive for what I will say extensive level of research. However, where there is lack, there's always a gap to build on and develop. As you've mentioned earlier on, yes, the country has, it is, it does have the longest coast in mainland Africa. Madagascar is the only one larger uh, in terms of coastline than Somalia, but then it is an island. But mainland Africa, Somalia has the longest coastline, which, if somebody was to look into research in blue economy, it's ripe. You also have, like I said, an environment or weather system that, in terms of renewable energy, that one can look into and develop academic research based on that. If you come back to sciences such as medicinal research, it is a country that just came out of a civil war and fragility. So development in that sector, advances in treatment is also lacking. So I think if you really look at all the angles of scientific research, academic, strong scientific research, there is a gap. And if
mhm.
one was willing to come and understand and study, I think they will walk away with having so many options rather than lack of options in terms of what to do and what to base an academic research on in all the angles of scientific development. So
Thank
yes,
you.
there's huge room and there's a huge uh, uh, opportunity for collaboration.
Yeah. Thank you, Ismail. What was also very much interesting for me when we met in Kenya, in Nairobi, I spent couple of hours in the KBT Polytechnic University in Nairobi, and I met with a lot of bachelor chemists. And what struck me is that a lot of these teams are looking at solving day-to-day problems. I think in Europe we can afford to look at, let's say, long-term thinking potential problem. But what I like personally, especially when you think about mitigating global warming, which we need to act now, I very much like the angle and the vision of the chemists that I talked to, where some of the team were finding ways to create biodiesel from plastic bags. Some of them were coming up with SAF, a sustainable aviation fuel, by collecting oil. And they already, it was a small startup in Nairobi. And I talked to the CEO. He already managed to put in place a partnership with a huge oil and gas manufacturer in the world. So what I like to see, what I like is this down-to-earth, super practical approach. We need to solve problems. Can you maybe tell us a bit more about this view on from the scientific academic side? Okay, that the guys that want to solve problems, is it the right feeling of the scientist in there?
Yes, it is. I mean, one of the reasons that people often become a scientist is their thirst to solve problems. And there is not a greater environment than here in Somalia, or I will say most of Africa, that will pose a scientist a challenge of how to solve things. And the absence of what you will call a very advanced innovation or very advanced solving mechanisms, people then resort to unexciting ways to solve what's in front of them. So I think anybody who's interested in academic development, this is an environment for them to come and say, wow, I mean, there is so much. I mean, if you look at now, I mean, oil and gas sector, Somalia is now going into oil and gas production. However, what that will bring is waste. And so far, there is not a waste management system, or there's not a waste management manual, I will say. So if one is, I mean, a scientist somewhere in Europe or even in South Africa can easily say, okay, fine, we have this refinery mechanisms, maybe we can then, it doesn't have to be so well advanced as they would use in America, but what can we do here that will take us to A to B? And from A to B, then you look into what's the next phase. And that next phase may be something that is quite unique to either Somalia or in Kenya. So it gives a scientist, I think, enough room to work on. For sure, they will not be bored. It's just having that stamina and the excitement, and the curiosity to engage in such area and climate. I think would allow one to have a fulfilled career in research, in particular in the scientific sector.
Thank you. And this is what struck me and what I loved when I was in Nairobi. I've seen this practical approach, and I was like, okay, if we can scale it up to the global south. I mean, the global south has 6 billion people. If we really want to make an impact, we need to work on finding ways to work and to find innovation in the global south, because the potential is huge, much bigger than whatever we do in Europe. So I like that. So the second part of my question is going to be, okay, there is a problem to be right next door. There's a lot of things that can be done on the academic side, scientific side. What about the translation from this academic research to move into a business? How do you see it? Let's say maybe in Somalia or in Africa, do you see it as an easy path, as a complicated path? How is it?
I would particularly say it's not without a challenge, but in the case of Somalia, because of the universities are owned privately, then with that also there is a room for a business development. Because if you are a university and you're running it as a business, then you want to be able to offer most advanced syllabus. And with that, if you need to then couple your syllabuses with a strong research element, then clearly you will seek that. So yes, there is, I will say, 100% a business element that could be looked into and explored going forward, especially when it comes to the academia sector. Also, in business outside of the academia, also yes, partnerships were suited. I think also it's an area to look into. I think one of the reasons that will scare individuals from developed systems is the fear of investment. I think, no one has ever made money or made a success by following like the herd, and I think going outside of the orbit and looking outside of the box, I think also will reward someone in the long run. So I will always encourage and say, you know what, at least have a look, read around it, make a visit like you did, and then from there on make an assessment that is obviously suited to that individual or the company that they lead. So
Yeah.
overall, I think
Cool.
I would like to encourage an investment and people to consider Africa, where, East Africa in particular, an area for business development and future partnership.
Thank you very much, Isman. We are at the end of this podcast. What I my takeaway from you is when I'm listening to you, I see a lot of agility in the thinking. I mean, your thinking, what you describe. I mean, the academic that are open for business. I see a lot of agility that maybe we have lost in Europe. We have always we think a lot of barrier. We are more like, okay, we cannot do this because we cannot do that because we cannot do that because. And I see this agility in Somalia, in Africa, where people are much more I don't know, agile in their thinking process, in their academic, in their okay, we need to find a solution now. Let's make a business out of it. I like that, and I think this is going to be the recipe for success coming up. Already happening in Kenya, in other countries, and is going to come in Somalia. So, thank you very much for your time, Isman. It was great to have you in the podcast.
Thank
I
you
wish
for
you a
having
very
me
good day.
also.
More than welcome. I would like to say also thank you to the people that are going to listen to this podcast. If you want to know more about Somalia, Kenya, Africa, academic side, business side, do not hesitate to reach out to Isman. If you have any question, she can definitely help you out. And thank you again for listening to this podcast. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.